Do you like mythology and cracking codes and deciphering and things like that? You may want to study alchemy. So today we're going to talk about alchemy. I'm not going to use my studio today. There's a lot going on. So let's begin. Alchemy. Some of you have heard of it, some of you haven't heard of it. I'm not going to spoon feed you for this one. Anything I say, please look it up. Alchemy is essentially, though, the chemistry before we had chemistry. It's like proto-chemistry. It's what we were doing before we had chemistry. It's the transmutation of metals, turning one metal into another metal. Basically, it's the study of what is stuff made out of, and can you turn one thing into another, and if you can, how do you do that? Alchemists have been, I wouldn't say primarily, but one of the goals of alchemy has been, of course, to be able to turn lead into gold. But many people think that that's all that alchemy is all about, and it isn't. And Isaac Newton really demonstrated that. Isaac Newton, and actually I have a link to a documentary of Isaac Newton and his work in alchemy. I'll even put the timestamp for you so that you can get more of an idea of what he was going into. But Isaac Newton had this idea that Ovid's poem, and Ovid is a Roman poet. Ovid has this book called the Metamorphosis, and it's full of poems of different myths. And in one of them, it's called Mars and Venus, Newton believed that that was a hidden alchemical recipe. That Ovid essentially told the myth of Mars and Venus, but in such a way so as to hide an alchemical recipe. The documentary goes into that. Mars represents iron, the god Mars. Venus represents copper, and Vulcan represents fire. And when you mix them together, you get this alloy called the net. And I'll let you watch the video so that you can get all the details. What I want to talk about is, since that has been proven, and Isaac Newton, his interpretation was correct, how many other myths in Ovid's Metamorphosis are there that are actually hidden alchemical recipes? And when you think about it, Ovid was actually exiled by Augustus Caesar. No one really exactly knows the reason why, but if there is validity to this idea that Ovid hid alchemical recipes in his poem, there's a reason to exile someone. If you are trying to find a way to make gold, what's that going to do to the value of gold in the Roman Empire? So, you got to go, Ovid. Maybe that's what really happened, who knows. But I have found a couple of myths in the Metamorphosis that fit, really, a alchemical transmutation. And I'll have videos in the future going over those myths and why I think that they could be likely hidden recipes. And I would love to be able to actually perform alchemy, you know, get a lab going and try these different mixtures out. If someone has a good idea if they have a good interpretation of the myth and they could perform it, or I would perform it, that'd be great. That'd be a great video. I had a guy in Canada named James. He is a psychology major, and he has like a whole lab. But what I'll do today is I'll tell you one of the myths from the Metamorphosis that I thought is a likely candidate for being a alchemical recipe. It's about Zeus and Europa. Now, before I tell you that, you need to know that alchemy has, from ancient times, it's been said to proceed in 4 stages. They call it blackening, whitening, yellowing, and reddening. And you can look up information about what that exactly means. I'm not going to spoon feed you. So, Zeus and Europa. Zeus sees Europa and he wants to have sex with her. What else is new? Well, he takes on the form of a dark black storm cloud. And she rejects his advances and he rapes her. Well, Hera suspects something's going on, and Hera is Zeus's wife. She looks down from Mount Olympus and she sees this big old storm cloud and she's like, no, he's not. No, not again. And she goes down to find Zeus. When he realizes that she's on the way, he very quickly transforms Europa into a white cow. Blackening, whitening, yellowing, reddening. Black storm cloud. White cow. When I realized this, it got my attention. Well, the next part in the story is Hera shows up and she says, what's going on? What are you doing? And Zeus is like, I was just, walking around and I found this beautiful cow. And, I thought you like cows being devoted to you in worship, so why not have this cow? Hera knows there's something up. So she's like, okay, yeah, I'll take that cow. She takes the cow, which is really Europa, and she has her tied up and put under guard of Argus, a giant with 100 eyes. 50 of them are open and 50 of them are shut. And they alternate so that you can never catch him sleeping. Well, Zeus sends Hermes to go rescue Europa. I'm not going to go into exactly what he did. But the point is that it's the way Hermes is described by Ovid. It's in a way I've never heard before or read before. And that points to a alchemical interpretation. See, he's adding more details. He describes Hermes as, the bright son of Maya, and there's a lot of light imagery. He's shining, and, there's a lot of light and yellow imagery. Okay? Well, Hermes frees Europa, but then Europa wanders the earth as a cow, and Hera sends the Furies after her. If you know anything about the Furies sprang to life from the blood of Uranus. Well, there it is. Black, white, yellow, red. Black storm cloud, white cow, the bright son of Maya, the Furies who sprang from the blood. It's a pretty good fit. And so I believe that if one is able to interpret the myth of Zeus and Europa correctly, if they're able to find out, which are metals, which are salts, which are liquids or gases perhaps, if you can find what they are and the myth will point to what they are, and you can do the research and you can replicate the transmutation, do the recipe, you should get something from the myth. Like Newton got the net. What would you get from the Zeus and Europa story? Well, eventually Europa turns back into her proper self. So maybe whatever the white cow represents, it turns into something. And that's the end product. Or perhaps you get something that looks like a peacock feather. Because Argus, his eyes, Hera took his eyes and put them supposedly in the feathers of the peacock. So what if the end product that you get is something that looks like a peacock's feather? Who knows? That's what's so interesting about alchemy, though. And with that, this is Brave Science, telling you to take no one's word for it and be brave.